I, Kaiba the Pug. There's a good chance I won't get to be part of the episode today of Super Deck Sunday. And I didn't want you guys to miss out on seeing me. So I said to Daddy, let me do the introduction for it today. So, yeah. Daddy's going to show you guys a cool deck about stuff that makes clones and stuff. And it's going to be fun. They're called Offspring. And it also has a whole bunch of stuff called Convoke. And it's a pretty cool deck. He showed it on the channel before, but he's had a few little changes since the last time, and I think that you guys will like this one. It hasn't been on a Super Deck Sunday yet. So, yeah. I love you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the cards. And maybe I'll see you guys later. Daddy is still working on that splash pad video, so he finally deleted some stuff off his phone so that he can make room. So, that should come out today too. Okay. I love you, Holman. I'm going to mess around with my yeast now. Enjoy the cards. Bye.
Thank you, Kaiba. Yes, we are here for Super Deck Sunday. I think I missed it last week, so I wanted to make sure I got it in this week for you guys. We are going to be doing our Super Deck Sunday today. It is another deck that I've featured on the channel before, but it has had a few new updates. When I went to search for the video, though, that I'm sure I've put out before for you guys with this deck in it, I couldn't for the life of me find it. And I know for a fact that I have put this video out somewhere. So I apologize for those of you who have been around the channel for a really long time and have seen this maybe in the last 6 months to a year at some point. But as I say, I did do a few different changes to this deck since the last time I posted. And to be honest, for Super Deck Sunday, I just didn't have anything else really ready for you guys. I picked a deck this morning that I knew I could upgrade fairly quickly because it wouldn't require much change, and there aren't a lot of cards that I could think of that I currently own that I really, really wanted to put into this deck that badly. So with that said, I figured, you know what, let's just go with what we've got, and I will share with you guys a really fun deck that I like to call Clone and Convoke. I'm not going to show you who the commander is yet. What I will show you, though, is the deck box, because I want you to know where this deck came from. I am not using the commander that is shown on this deck box, but this is one of the March of the Machines Precons that I have taken and upgraded to a certain extent. Of the March of the Machines Precons that I have, the only one that I kept, and I've bought all 5, the only one for sure that I can recall that I've kept 100% of Precon is the Knights one. I think I've kept the backup one 100% of Precon too, but I can't swear to that right now. I'd have to go home and double check to see if it's on my Precon shelf or not. As you can tell, I'm in the car again. My dad decided not to go out again today, and I did not really want to record with a quiet voice for you guys. And since I had to go out for Coke and groceries anyways, I figured, you know what, I'm just going to try and hack this out super quick, get you guys a nice video together, so when I get back home with those groceries, I can just quickly put CapCut together on adding the Kaiba introduction and, of course, my lovely outro that I absolutely adore to the video, so that it will be a complete video, and then I can get that posted for you guys so that later this evening, I can get out that splash pad video that I've been promising. It is underway. I just really have... Yesterday was pretty depressing for me, to be honest. I'm just going to lay it out for you guys right now. I really wanted to go out and play some Commander last night, and it just wasn't going to happen. Kaiba got pretty upset and needed a lot of attention and love, and my dad's kind of gotten a little bit more irritable again since all the house stuff is done now. He no longer has those people to be mad at, so he's kind of focusing on me again, unfortunately. But it is what it is. So first I'm going to show you the lands, and then I'm going to show you the rest of the deck. I want to hype up this deck because I think this deck is a lot of fun to play, actually. I made 2, maybe 3 changes to it this morning. Not counting lands, I did change a few lands out this morning as well. But not counting the lands, I did change like 2 or 3 cards this morning, but otherwise this deck is pretty much the way I had it before, when I was going to show it to you guys. And I guess, like I say, I don't know what happened to that video. So anyways, here we go. We've got our classic Evolving Wilds and our Terramorphic Expanse to go fetch us some basics. I always like to keep these in the decks if I am starting with a Precon base, mainly because, especially if it's a 3-land deck. If it's only a 2-land deck, I'm probably going to pull these unless I get some sort of benefit from the landfall trigger. But in a 3-land or higher deck, it's always good to have these because you're going to run into those times where you get jammed. And you just can't pull, say, a mountain when you really need one. Mystic Monastery, I don't like the fact that it enters tapped, I'm not going to lie, but I do love the artwork for this one in particular. I think it's really beautiful. And so I was happy to keep it with the deck that it came with. Command Tower, also really great card. There's our first great of the day, unfortunately. And I'm fumbling the cards already. Yeah. Command Tower is a classic. You always keep it in a commander deck if you get one. I mean, again, 2-mana decks, I might pull it if I really wanted to, but these are some of the lands I added today. I added Tranquil Cove, Windscarred Crag, and Swiftwater Cliffs. Before, this deck came with the ones that if you have a mountain or a plains, you can reveal it, and then that land comes in untapped. I do like the fact that those lands came in untapped, don't get me wrong, versus these ones which all automatically come in tapped. But these ones all give me 1 life, which I really like the life gain aspect, and I don't have to show somebody what's in my hand. I find that with those lands where you can reveal it, yes, you're getting an advantage in the fact that you can play with the land that you're putting out right away, but the disadvantage is somebody already knows what other 1 extra card that's in your hand. Depending on your hand size, that might be most of your hand later in the game, for example. If you only had like a 3-card hand and you're revealing a land, people know that you don't have a lot of threats. They might take advantage of that. So I like these ones better. And I also kept in all the temples. Those ones did come with the deck. And I thought, again, great lands for sure. Okay, we're going to pick new words for great. Wow, that's way too many greats already at the start of this. These ones are fantastic lands because they get you to scry, and if you don't like the card, you can always put it to the bottom of the deck. If you're searching for a land or something, that's a great way to... Son of a gun! Oh my goodness, we are going to have a problem today with the word great, aren't we? The mountains, plains, and islands are all pretty much the ones that came in the deck already. I think I added 1 plains this morning, yeah. Just because I wasn't sure what I did with the extra one that I pulled out before for a different card. I'm sure I must have pulled one because there's no way that the plains were so low compared to the islands and the mountains. The mountains were 7, or no, islands were 7, mountains were 6, and plains were 5, and I thought that seemed ridiculous, so I balanced it out to 6 each. The extra lands that I added today, Holdout Settlement. I really like this one for the fact that we're wanting to do convoking stuff, so there are a few cards in here that really want to be tapped, and this will give me another way to tap those cards and add a mana of any color. So if I'm running into an issue with the Convoke thing, where, because this deck is going to produce a whole bunch of tokens. I'm going to let you know right now, this deck makes a massive amount of tokens. And the whole point of the massive amount of tokens is to use those tokens for mana to cast sorceries and instants and other things like that from my hand. So this land here is in particularly special for the fact that I'm probably going to try and leave this one up on my turn so that I can tap it, or up on my turn so that I can tap it on an opponent's turn and use it for the extra color that I need for whatever spell is in my hand. We got ourselves a Rogue's Passage. That one actually did come with the deck, and it's a phenomenal land for this deck because there's going to be some really big creatures that I'm going to want to swing in with and not be blocked, and especially my commander. Now, granted, my commander is pretty good. It has evasion built in, but, and again, it's not the one on the deck box. The one on the deck box makes a lot of sense for this deck, don't get me wrong, but the one that I've picked is actually really fun for this deck when you see what I'm doing. Carekeep I left in here. It also came with this deck. Another great, dang nabbit, another great land. Taps for colorless, yes, but you can pay 1 and a red to create a token. Again, making more tokens is a big part of the strategy of this deck, so having a land that can just produce a token at random on somebody else's turn, especially if I need an extra blocker or something, beautiful. And finally, I added my only copy of Gear Reach Sanitarium into this deck this morning. There is a couple cards in here that really want to see me draw extra cards on my turn, and this deck wasn't particularly designed for that, although it does have some pretty good benefits from it. But, so adding this land in just made a lot of sense to me. While I am going to give all my opponents a chance to improve their hands too, don't get me wrong, the benefit that I'm going to get from this, in particular with one creature that I added in this morning, is insane. So, yeah. Those are the lands. I'm just going to set those aside and go fetch the next part, which will be the artifacts. Because the artifacts aren't super important to this deck. Most of them just produce a lot of mana, which is the main reason they're in here. But they do have some interesting effects too, besides that. We have our classics, Arcane Signet, Soul Ring, and then because it was a Planeswalker deck, Plane Chase deck, from March of the Machines, it did come with Ichor Elixir. Ichor Elixir is a little expensive to get onto the field, don't get me wrong, but you are tapping for an extra 2, so I figured, and on the odd chance that if I do play Planes Chase with this deck, it's nice to have this still in here just for the extra roll. So, there are other cards that might be better to put in this deck, but I thought I liked that one, so I left it. Wand of World Soul also came with this deck, which was crazy. When it enters the battlefield, it comes in tapped. You can tap it for white, and then you can tap it to give the next spell you cast this turn Convoke. That is huge in this deck, because there are a lot of spells in here that I would love to Convoke that don't have Convoke on them. So this will give them that ability, and then I can use, like I say, a whole bunch of tokens to pay most of the cost. Cursed Mirror also, that one's actually an add-in from Outlaws at Thunder Junction. This one was actually in that Spellslinger deck that I've shown you guys before, the one with, oh, what's her name? It's not Marchesa. Marchesa's the one that I really, really like, but that's not who it is. The quick draw lady, you know who I'm talking about. Anyways, Stella. I'm pretty sure it's Stella. Anyways, Cursed Mirror came in that deck, but I decided to pull it for this one. Tapped add red, but what I really like about this one is it comes in as a copy of a creature on the battlefield until the end of the turn, except that creature will get haste. So I'll be able to swing with 2 copies of something on my board, or potentially I put in something extra that's going to make me more tokens for a turn. Because, again, the more tokens I produce, the basic goal of this deck is to just overwhelm my opponents with such a big board that they can't possibly compete. And to do it as quickly as possible. Deluxe Dragster actually did come with this deck, and I really still am not 100% sure why, but I think it's a fun card, and I can't come up with a better deck to put it in yet, so I've left it in here. It can't be blocked except by vehicles, so unless somebody's playing a vehicles deck, pretty sure you're swinging in for 4 successfully most turns. When it deals combat damage to a player, you can cast an instant or a sorcery spell from that player's graveyard without paying its mana cost, and then exile that card afterwards, if it would go to the graveyard. I really think that's fun. I get to steal stuff from somebody else's graveyard repeatedly, as long as this gets through, and again, unless somebody's playing vehicles, chances are it's getting through. This is one of those ones that once it becomes a creature, or no, it can't become a creature. Never mind. Forget what I was about to say. But there are other things that I can do with this card that are pretty cool. I do like this one, though, and I think it's a fun card to leave in the deck. And finally, this is one that I added in personally myself because I think it becomes an insanely valuable card in this deck. Equipped creature is unblockable and can't be the target of spells or abilities. Mainly this is for my commander, but there are a few other creatures that I could definitely see putting this on. Cost 3 to put into play, 2 to equip is a fantastic card. And the best artifact in this deck for sure, by far. Oh my goodness. It is allergy season, so I'm going to apologize in advance for that. Enchantments next. Let's do enchantments next. Enchantments are fun for this deck. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. With all the different tokens that I'm going to be making each turn, this is going to boost my army significantly. And what's really good about that is most of my army is coming in as a 1/1. So if a whole bunch of tokens come into play and I have some way to give them haste, this is going to see those tokens coming into play and it's just going to boost the snot out of all of them, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Plus whatever else is on my board, of course. Impact Tremors is in here for the same reason. That one actually came with the deck though. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under my control, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. Again, I'm making a ton of tokens. And because all those tokens technically are creatures entering the battlefield, they will all deal 1 damage to each of my opponents. So I'm going to quickly reduce their life just by building my army and then swinging with my army to finish them off. Inspiring Leader is an insanely fun card that I wish I had more than one copy of, but I think it's a good one to put in this deck because as long as I have my commander on the board, which again, if I have Whisper Silk on my commander, I'm pretty safe. Then all my creature tokens are going to get +2/+2 until permanently as a buff. So again, that combined with Valor and Akros just means they're going to get so much bigger, which is just going to make it that much harder to successfully block them all. Improbable Alliance is one of those cards that is in here for the card draw, but also for the token. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, you're going to create a 1/1 blue fairy creature token with flying. And you can pay 4, a blue, and a red to draw a card and discard a card. So it is kind of expensive to get the second ability on this card, but it is well worth it to get the token into play. Plus, you're going to see a very cool interaction later on that requires me to draw a second card each turn. And so this is another one that's going to allow me to do that besides the land that I showed you earlier. Where are we at in terms of time? 16 minutes. Okay, not so bad. Finally, Whirlwind of Thought is a solid include for this deck, specifically because whenever I cast a non-creature spell, I get to draw a card. So again, that's another way to get a second card each turn, as long as I'm playing an enchantment, artifact, etc., etc. Now, while this deck is significantly heavy with creatures, I'm not going to say it isn't, there is still a lot of value in that card for sure. So, happy to have it on board. Next, I'm going to show you the plane... Do I want to show you the Planeswalker first, or do I want to show you the... I'm going to do the Planeswalker first. Why not? There is one Planeswalker in this deck. She is a fantastic Planeswalker in general, but specifically for this deck, she is also just the end-all, be-all. I apologize for the noise. I really need to open the windows and let some air in here. It was getting pretty hot. I'm hoping there won't be any bees today, so I won't have to close it and make a bunch of more noise. Quick sip of Coke. And then we'll get back to this. Okay. So as I say, this Planeswalker, she kind of does everything for this deck in a lot of ways, so I'm pretty happy to have her on board. And that is Elspeth Sun's Champion. She did come with this deck, which is a crazy include in the first place. But what she does is just beautiful for this deck. First off, I'm making 3 1/1 white soldier creature tokens each turn pretty much. Most turns I'm not planning to do the... I'm going to say right now, the likelihood that I'm going to do the destroy all creatures of power 4 or greater is pretty slim. Not because I don't like that ability, but because with the buffs that I have in this deck, all my 1/1s are going to instantly become 3/3s or 4/4s potentially when they hit the board. Never mind all the extra power and toughness that they might get because of extra creatures coming into play and everything like that triggering other things. Just the simple fact that they came into play and certain things are on my board is instantly going to buff them to power 4 or greater and make everything killable. So that's kind of like a last resort. What I really want to do is get her as quickly to 7 as possible, and then I can sacrifice her if I need to, but if I don't need to, that's even better. If I can get her to 8 first, that's fantastic, of course, but if I get her to 7 and I sacrifice her, all my creatures are going to get +2/+2 and have flying, and I permanently have that emblem. This deck, I do believe, came with that emblem, yes, which was really nice. A lot of times I find when you get a cool planeswalker that requires an emblem... Oop, I accidentally revealed the commander there. Hopefully you didn't see that. If you did, oh well, you know the commander already, but if you don't yet, by all means, keep trying to guess. There is a reason why I have it face down. It's because, as I said, it basically takes care of the first half of what I call my deck, which is, again, Clone and Convoke. There is a reason why this deck is called that, and the commander over here is definitely the clone aspect of the deck. In the meantime and between time, though, she is, as I say, a phenomenal planeswalker. Definitely the best choice for this deck, I think. Next, I'll do the instants and sorceries, and then we'll get into the creatures. So, first off, I have only 5. I have 5 instants and sorceries that do not have Convoke. I'm going to show those afterwards. This stack here all has Convoke already built in, so that enchantment that I showed you earlier doesn't necessarily need to be used on these. What I actually plan to use that enchantment for more so is for the creature costs in particular, because creature costs can be pretty hefty in this deck for what it wants to do. Anyways, we have Temporal Cleansing, Convoke. The owner of target non-land permanent puts it in their library second from the top or on the bottom. As far as I know, that's my choice, not theirs. I would probably put it to the bottom in most cases, but you never know. Hour of Reckoning, fantastic card. Destroy all non-token creatures, and again, Convoke, so if I have a whole bunch of tokens, I'm basically wiping out most other people's boards, assuming they're not playing tokens, and preserving a lot of my own stuff. Aerial Boost, 1 in a white with Convoke. Target creature gets +2/+2 and gains flying until end of turn. Pretty simple, straightforward spell there. Stoke the Flames, 2 and 2 red, again with Convoke, and it deals 4 damage to any target. Sorry, I forgot. Temporal Cleansing was 3 and a blue, and Hour of Reckoning was 4 and 3 white. So, I mean, again, some of the costs in here are pretty hefty, which is why the Convoke is so important. Oops, almost lost that one. Ephemeral Shields, 1 in a white. Target creature gains indestructible until end of turn. Pretty important card for sure in this deck. Devouring Light, 1 and 2 white. Exile target attacking or blocking creature, again with Convoke. Meeting of the Minds, 3 in a blue. Draw 2 cards. Another one that helps me activate a few different things in this deck that want to have the second card draw per turn. Artistic Refusal, 4 and 2 blue. I can either choose one or both, counter target spell, or draw 2 cards and discard a card. Chances are I'm going to do both if I can. Pretty versatile card there. And I think that's the last one with Convoke. Nope, one more with Convoke after that. Okay. Chant of Vitu Ghazi. By the way, I think all of these came in the deck except for Temporal Cleansing. I think is... Nope. I added Aerial Boost too. Okay. Oh, I added a bunch of these. Stoke the Flames is an add-in. I didn't realize how many of these were add-ins. What did this come with originally? There's a whole bunch of things that are clearly add-ins. Okay, anyways. Chant of Vitu Ghazi. Convoke, prevent all damage that we dealt by creatures this turn. You gain life equal to the damage prevented this way. Shatter the Source, 5 in a red with Convoke. I get to either deal 6 damage to target creature, planeswalker, or battle, or destroy an artifact. Usually aiming to hit a planeswalker with this, because planeswalkers are so hard to hit with combat damage since people can block. Now we're getting into the stuff that doesn't have Convoke, but I would like to give Convoke. For example, create X 1/1 white warrior creature tokens. If I can Convoke that and make, say, 20 warriors in one turn, that's fantastic. Swords to Plowshares, that one doesn't need Convoke. That's pretty straightforward, and it came with the deck. I think the sword, yeah, Secure the Waste did too. Path of the Ghost Hunter came with the deck as well. Create X/1/1 white spirit creature tokens with flying. This one also has a Planeswalker thing. Each player votes for Planeswalker Chaos. So again, this is a wonderful card if I'm actually playing Plane Chase to leave in the deck, but mainly it's in here because it's going to just make me a massive amount of tokens. And again, if I can Convoke with this, all the better. Because the Convoke with that one and this one can pay the X. So I can make the X however big I want by tapping however many creatures I have on board. Rite of Replication, this is the one that I actually had in the Commander Core Creator Challenge deck last month. I decided when I was updating this morning that this would be an insanely good card to put into this deck. Again, if I can give it Convoke, I can pay the kicker and half of the cost just by tapping creatures and make a whole bunch more creatures. And finally, Austere Command, 4 and 2 white. I can destroy all artifacts, enchantments, creatures with mana value 3 or less, or creatures with mana value 4 or greater. Really solid include in this deck for sure. It came with the deck, and again, if I can Convoke that, why not? Now we get into the fun creatures of this deck. I'm going to start with the creatures that have absolutely nothing to do with tokens or anything else. They're just random includes that actually are really valuable for this deck. Some of them came with the deck, and some of them just, yeah. Creatures you control with power or toughness 1 or less can't be blocked. If my creatures don't get buffed, because my enchantments aren't out, then I have a board of unblockable creatures, as long as this guy's on board. Village Bellringer lets me just, at instant speed, untap all my creatures. This is one of those ones you want to play on your opponent's turn so that you have a board of blockables. Or if you really need to untap all your creatures after you've used them all for Convoking, then you can swing with them afterwards. Still a great include in this deck. This is an add-in by me, Daxos, Blessed by the Sun. Because of all the creatures coming in and potentially dying as well, I'm just going to gain a ton of life off this guy. And also, his toughness is equal to my devotion to white, so at minimum, his toughness is going to be 2, but I mean, this deck is full of white stuff, as you've seen, so there's a solid chance that his toughness could be anywhere in the neighborhood of like 8 to 10, making him a pretty hard creature to remove, without like a sorcery instant, of course. Suture Priest, 1 and a white for 1/1, another one that's going to give me life whenever a creature enters the battlefield under my control. But what I like about this one is whenever a creature enters the battlefield under my opponent's control, they're losing life. So this one came with the deck, so between these two, I'm gaining a significant amount of life every time something's coming in, and a lot of stuff is coming in again because of all the cloning I plan to do and tokens that I'm putting into play. But at the same time, this one's actually going to let me also drain people's life for them putting stuff into play. So a lot of these cards, again, like these two in particular, while they're doing great things for me, I know they're great, I know, they take the heat off my commander. This guy, he came with the deck, and I just like him. I think he's funny. If I have 2 or more mountains, I can destroy an artifact. If I have 2 or more planes, I can destroy an enchantment. As I say, there are 6 of each basic in here, which isn't a lot. Actually, I think there's more than 6, because there's like 35 lands. So there's got to be more than 6. Hold on, let me check. Now I'm curious. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mountains. Yeah, I was going to say, this seems wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 planes. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Actually, I've got to go take a planes out and put the island back in. So that's 7 of each. But that's like, I'll have 7 of each. So there's a good chance that I'm going to have enough that I can get at least one of those abilities, if not 2. I really didn't do a very good job of paying attention to the lands this morning when I was doing that. Oh well. Jellin Sphinx, 3 and a white and a blue, has flying vigilance, 1/5, and whenever it attacks, all my other attacking creatures get +1/+1, so again, a massive buff thing going on with this guy on board. He does counteract with the Tetsuku, obviously, but once again, if my board is cleared of anything that's giving buffs, Tetsuku is just going to let me attack unblockable. So the chances are they're going to want to at least leave something on my board that's buffing. And he's a fun one because, again, like I say, I'm going to be cloning a whole bunch of stuff in this deck, so anything that isn't legendary potentially is going to have a duplicate on board, which is phenomenal. Now we're getting into things that I want to tap each turn. For example, Follow Sage. I want to tap this because I'll get to draw that second card and trigger a bunch of stuff going on. Saint Traft, and Rem Carlos. This is the one that actually is the backup commander for the Precon deck. Sorry, tongue-tied. When it becomes tapped, I get to create a red human. If it's the second time that I tap him, I get a spirit. If it's with flying. If it's the third time I tap him, I get a 4/4 angel with flying. And whenever I cast a spell that has Convoke, I get to untap him. So all those instants and sorceries that have Convoke are fantastic first off, but the big thing is that one enchantment, as long as I can keep it on the board, is going to let me basically give Convoke to anything, and therefore I'm going to be untapping him frequently. Miss Meadow Vanisher, another one that wants to get tapped. Whenever it becomes tapped, I get to exile one target non-land, non-token permanent. Return that card to the battlefield under its own controller at the beginning of the next end step. There's a whole bunch of things in my deck that would be fun to blink, don't get me wrong, but also just be able to get rid of something that is annoying me on an opponent's turn, on an opponent's board. Say, for example, if an opponent has, I had that spell in my head and then I forgot it. I'm going to pick the other one then off the top of my head. Ghostly Prison. It's not the one I wanted. I wanted the blue one, but I can't remember what the blue one is. Ghostly Prison is in play. I can blink out their Ghostly Prison so I don't have to pay the cost to swing with my board. Fun times. Goblin Medics deals 1 damage to any target whenever it becomes tapped. So these guys are all great targets for the Convoke stuff. Verdant Loxodon, now we're getting into things that actually have Convoke built into them. When it enters the battlefield, I get to put a +1/+1 counter on each creature that convoked it, so since it's 4 and a white, there's a good chance that I could be giving 4 tokens +1/+1s, or I could give it to my commander if I used it to, etc., etc. Lots of good choices. Seraph of the Masses, I'm just going to set this one aside because I want that one to be the last one you see with Convoke, so 1 second, sorry. Even though you know it's coming, it's kind of important that it goes last in this order. Seraph of the Masses, 5 and 2 white, has Convoke, has flying, its power and toughness are equal to the number of creatures you control. Beautiful spell to get into play for sure, and then a beast on the board. Flock Chaser Phantom, 4 and a white and a blue, also with Convoke, flying Vigilance, and whenever it attacks, the next spell you cast this turn has Convoke. So that's going to give anything in my deck Convoke, like the land did, which is a wonderful thing to have. Flying Vigilance makes this really hard to actually deal with, and it's another one that, again, like, keep in mind, anything that is non-legendary, I can make a copy of. So if I make a copy of this, I have 2 of these guys attacking, I have 2 spells that I can play with Convoke, in theory. I think. I'm not sure if that double stacks or not. Anyways. Flight of Equinauts, 7 and a white for a 4/5 with Convoke and flying. Not a really good card in any way, shape, or form other than the fact that it does have Convoke already built into it. It's one of those ones that I could easily see replacing if I find something that would work better in this deck, but I'm happy with this one right now in there. Angel of Salvation is phenomenal. I said phenomenal a few too many times now, too. Super. It's a super card, because when it enters the battlefield, I can prevent the next 5 damage that would be dealt to any number of targets. So I can actually save a whole bunch of my tokens in theory, or I can just keep myself from dying. It does have Flash and Convoke, so I can play it on my opponent's turns. And the big thing with Convoke that you have to keep in mind is, if I block and then play something that has Flash or instant speed with Convoke, I can tap all those blockers. They're still technically blocking. And they also then let me trigger whatever is coming into play. So, pretty good. Wildfire Awakener, also with Convoke. has an X, which is great because, again, lots of tokens. When this thing enters the battlefield, create X/1/1 red elemental creature tokens with whenever this thing becomes tapped, it deals 1 damage to target player. So all those tokens are going to be wonderful things to use for convoking. This guy is key in this deck. I love him. And so, wonderful card to play, for sure. This is the last one that I wanted to show you. It is the original commander that came with this deck. It is a huge beast on the board. Another one that I would love to keep in play as much as I can. So another one that's great target for the Mist Veil Cloak. I think that's what it was. Mist Valley Cloak, whatever. Flying Vigilance Haste 5/4, and whenever I cast another spell that has Convoke, I get to scry 2, then draw a card, so I'm getting that extra card draw. Big thing about this one, though, again, it is just a phenomenal include in this deck, and has the Convoke, but yeah, that extra card draw is key for sure. Now we're getting into things that I have put in here because they give buffs. Wrath, he is really cheap to get into play, but his ability costs a lot. However, the thing that I like about him is his first ability, which is whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may tap 2 untapped creatures you control, and if you do, you get to draw a card. So another way to draw an extra card each turn. Again, drawing the second card is going to be huge in a little bit. I'm going to be showing you probably one of the coolest cards that I decided to add into this deck, specifically with the idea of drawing the second card. So, but the other thing that this guy does is, if I pay 3 and 2 white, all my creatures get +1/+1 and gain vigilance until end of turn. So, and that's not a one-off. I can do that repeatedly. So, if I have a whole bunch of creatures, unfortunately, I won't be able to convoke that. That's the only downside. But so, what I just said about the whole bunch of creatures is not applicable to the Convoke, but it's applicable to the original buff, them all gaining vigilance when I swing, is super great. It's wicked, because then my creatures can all swing, and then I can still have them available for convoking later on, or blocking. Spirit Companion, he came with the deck, and he's just a simple, cute little dog, gives you a draw when he comes in, so second card draw again, and he's a 1/1, so he gets the Tetsuku ability immediately. Mentor the Meek. Whenever a creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you can pay 1. If you do, you get to draw a card. More card draw. Again, the more I can get that second draw each turn, the better for me, because whenever I get that second draw each turn, you're going to see I'm going to get a huge board out of it when I show you this final card that I'm putting down over here. I'm saving that for the end, after I've shown you even the commander. Whenever you draw a card, you put a +1/+1 on this guy. He's insane, because when he dies, you get to make X blue 1/1 squid creature tokens with Island Walk. So as long as somebody has an island, I'm going to be able to swing on them with all these squids for free. And the X is the number of +1/+1 counters on this, so I'm going to be, of course, drawing a card each turn, plus drawing bonus cards from all the other things that you're seeing. And again, this is another one that if I can make a clone of this, imagine all the squids that I get if both of them die. The Locust God. Of course it came with this deck, and of course it's a fantastic card for this deck. First off, 4/4 flying. Second off, it costs a lot to put into play, yeah, but if I can do one of those things that lets me convoke it, it's not so big a deal. Whenever I draw a card, I create a 1/1 blue and red insect creature token with flying and haste. So that is pretty phenomenal as well. I'd have one other card I want to save actually till the end. Those are the two like insane cards that I decided to put in this deck that just make this deck pop. He also has another ability to let me draw. So again, that second card draw each turn, which I keep hyping about being really important. And shoot, we're in battery saver mode, so this is probably split into 2 videos now. When he dies, he returns to my hand at the beginning of my next end step, so I can constantly keep replaying him. Tura, whenever I cast an instant or sorcery spell, I'm going to make a 1/1 white creature token. I know this deck doesn't have a ton of those, but each one is going to give me a token, and those tokens are valuable to me. Murmuring Mystic, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you get also a 1/1 blue bird. So I'm getting 2 tokens now, each time I cast an instant or sorcery, if both those guys are on board. At the beginning of each opponent's end step, if a player controls more creatures than you, you create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. Not probably going to happen in this deck very much, but I'm including it anyways just in case. The other thing I like about this one, though, is at the beginning of each opponent's end step, if they have more lands than me, I get to search my library for a basic plains and put it onto the battlefield tapped. So if somebody's playing Landfall, I'm at least going to get 1 plains every round bonus on top of my regular stuff. Now, granted, again, I don't have a lot of lands in here. That's probably why I'm actually going to leave the extra plains in and switch out a mountain for the island, I think, because the mountains don't seem to be as prevalent in this deck as the islands and plains, but still. Anyways, Nesting Dovehawk. This one is beautiful. I love this card so much. First off, I love the artwork on it, so we'll give appreciation to the artwork. And then second off, flying 2/2. At the beginning of combat, I get to populate. So I get to create a token that's a copy of a creature token I already control, making an extra token insane. And whenever a creature token enters the battlefield under my control, I get to put +1/+1 on this. So, again, if I make a clone of this, I'm going to get 2 tokens each turn, and each of those tokens is going to give 2 +1 or +1/+1 counter to each of the birds, so I'll get 2 +1/+1 counters. You're going to see later that's going to be many, many more +1/+1 counters, and these birds are going to get massive. This is another big, big target for the commander's ability. Joyful Storm Sculptor. 3, a blue and a red. When it enters the battlefield, I make 2 1/1 blue and red elemental creature tokens. Whenever I cast a spell that has Convoke, this thing deals 1 damage to each opponent in each battle they protect. I don't have any battles in this game. I think this deck did come with a battle, but I don't use it. If other people are playing battles, that kind of helps them out, unfortunately, but if I have 2 copies of this, I'm going to be dealing 2 damage per spell that I cast with Convoke. So that's a lot of damage over time. Baird, Argivian Recruiter. At the beginning of my end step, if I control a creature with power greater than its base power, I automatically make a white soldier token. That's going to happen a lot in this deck, so yeah. He's going to be making a token every turn, which is phenomenal for me. Kaikar Wind's Fury. Flying. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you make a white spirit creature token with flying, and you can sacrifice spirits to get red mana. There is no limit to how many spirits you sacrifice to this thing. That is huge. I can make a ton of red mana in a turn if I need to. Akeem, the Soaring Wind. Whenever you create 1 or more tokens for the first time each turn, you get to create a white bird creature token with flying in addition. And creature tokens you control gain double strike until end of turn if you can pay 3, a blue and a red and a white. It is a little expensive to get that second ability, but that second ability is clutch in this deck. So definitely an amazing include. Unfortunately, these last 3, of course, are legendaries, and the next couple, I think at least the next one for sure is. So I can't make doubles of these because of legendary rule. Kaikar Zephyr Awakener. I decided to throw my extra copy of this into this deck this morning because whenever I cast a non-creature spell, I can make a white spirit creature token with flying, or I can flicker something. Probably going to do the first or the second ability more often than not, but again, this is another one of those chances where if somebody has Ghostly Prison in play, or God, I wish I could remember what that one is. I know what it is. I have it at home. I use it in one of my decks. Somebody in the comments, please remind me what that blue spell is that I'm thinking of that makes you pay 2 to attack with a creature. Anyways, yeah. So another way that I can get rid of that to let me be free to attack if I need to. Phenomenal include in the deck. Vinegar Kraken, another one that I would love to clone. Whenever I draw a card, I can pay 1. If I do, I put a +1/+1 counter on this thing, and I create a blue tentacle creature token. So I'm automatically getting a token. I'm getting +1/+1 counters on this. If I make a double of this, I'm getting twice the card draw and twice the tokens. Like, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. When this one enters the battlefield, I create a red goblin creature token. This one is not a huge deal it's like a cheap one to put into play, essentially, if I have a little bit of extra mana, or at the beginning of the game. And finally, Monastery Mentor. Again, I know this deck doesn't have a ton of non-creature cards. Basically, I would say that the non-creature cards are almost equal to the creatures in total. But the idea that all the tokens also have prowess is insane. So if I have a clone of this, I'm going to be making 2 tokens every time I create or cast a non-creature spell. And then all those cards are going to be getting +1/+1 for the spell that I played. Those are the creatures for the most part. If you haven't guessed the commander by now, I'm going to be revealing it. As I said, it is not from this set. It is not something that came with this deck at all, and it is completely out of the blue, but it makes perfect sense for what I want to do. So 3, 2, 1, in case you didn't catch it earlier when I accidentally revealed it, it is Zinnia, Valley's Voice. I love Zinnia. First off, artwork phenomenal. This is one of my more expensive cards that I've pulled in my time. Huge pull when I pulled this one. I was so over the moon for it. And what this card does is insane. First off, it's a really cheap commander for this deck compared to the 2 that came with it. Second off, it gets +X+O, where X is the number of other creatures I control with a base power of 1. So even though all my creatures are getting buffed a massive amount, the fact that most of them come in as 1/1s means that this thing has a huge power. And then if I put the cloak on it to protect it, it can't be really dealt with except by being blocked, which again, because it has flying, means it has to be blocked by something either with flying or a reach at the minimum. And in addition to that, all my creatures have Offspring too. Now, for those who don't know, Offspring means that if I pay 2 extra mana each turn, when I cast one of my creatures, I can make a copy of that creature, but that creature comes in as a 1/1. So, any of those creatures I've shown you before so far, imagine the Nadir Kraken. I'm going to get an extra Kraken, but it's going to be a 1/1. That Kraken's still going to get really huge really fast because of the double ability occurring whenever I draw a card. The Monastery Mentor. I'm going to have double the monk tokens coming into play. And all that prowess triggers is going to just make that board huge. Nesting Dovehawk. Double Nesting Dovehawks, a 1/1 and a 2/2, not going to make a big difference when they're getting the amount of +1/+1s they're getting. And the amount of creature tokens they're making, mega huge for this deck. All these creatures just could be so OP by making the second one and leaving them on the board. And the fact that I can give most of the spells in this deck Convoke means that I can actually pay for the original card with all my creatures by tapping them, and then essentially pay that extra 2 with the 2 mana that I have left over laying around to make the clones. So that I really don't have the mana screwed issues that I would expect with a red, blue, white deck, especially one that isn't really fetching lands that much. Now, with all that said, there are 2 cards in this deck that if I make copies of them, if I make one copy, first off, I can't make a copy of the second one. I'm going to show you the first one, or the second one first, because I can't make a copy of it, but it's in here specifically because of what it does in relation to all the tokens being made, and especially my commander. So, with my commander in mind and everything else that I'm making tokens with, the auto-include for this deck, obviously, if you haven't guessed it, is an Osier Tak Deepest Foundation. Again, if I can give this thing Convoke, fantastic. I could probably pay for it with just 2 white. It is a 6/6 with Vigilance, and whenever I make a token, instead I make 3 times that many tokens. Everything in here is going to produce so many tokens if I can keep this on the board. Another huge target for the cloak. And again, if this thing dies, it's not the end of the world, because it comes back as an extra land for me. With the caveat that I can pay 2 and a white and transform it back into its god self anytime that I attack with 3 or more creatures at sorcery speed. So on main phase 2, I can turn this back into a creature each time it's been killed off. craziness what this card will do in this deck. And then, the piece de resistance, the add-in from this morning that I decided just could not be ignored. Homunculus Horde. Again, if I can convoke it, it only costs me 1 white, or 1 blue, sorry. And then the 2 costs for the offspring, because this one I can clone. So I'll have a 2/2 copy of it and a 1/1 copy of it. Whenever I draw my second card each turn, I create a token that's a copy of it. Now, with Ojar Tech, I'm going to be making 3 tokens of that. So, if I make, first off, if I offspring it, I'm going to have 4 copies of it on board immediately when it comes into play. Then, if I draw a second card that turn, I'm going to get 3 copies for each of those copies, so that would be 12 copies coming into play of the homunculus. Now, granted, only 3 of those copies will be 2/2s, and the rest will all be 1/1s. But it's not a huge deal when you have 50 homunculus by turn 4 of it being on board with this. So, that is the game plan of this deck, is to just overwhelm my opponents. Now, granted, the one thing this deck is hugely weak against, for a blue deck, it is surprising, I know. But this deck does not have a lot of counter magic. I am considering taking a couple things out of here and putting in an extra couple of counter spells just to protect it a little more. But honestly, I actually kind of like the way it is. It's kind of like, I challenge people to deal with me, or I'm going to be the problem that they can't deal with. It's one of those decks that I have a lot of fun playing it, and I know that I'm probably not going to win with it, but at least if I can do the thing, it is hilarious. Anyways, I'm going to cap it off there because this has been going on a really long time. I hope you guys have enjoyed this deck profile, and I hope you guys will tune in for the Splash Pad video later this afternoon. Much love to you all from you. Take care.